During World War II, Japan trafficked nearly 500,000 women into sexual slavery. This system of so-called comfort women was the single largest case of government-sponsored human trafficking in modern history. Japan has still yet to reckon with its war crimes. What would justice look like for the survivors? And how urgent is the struggle for recognition given the rise of far-right nationalism in Japan? We'll discuss this and more on this week's China Report. Welcome to the China Report. Every week, we'll be helping you sort through all the propaganda with an independent view of the country that we're taught to hate, but know so little about. I'm your host, Amanda Yee. These are this week's headlines. President Trump has approved sales of Nvidia advanced chips to China. Trump gave the company the green light on Monday to ship its more advanced H200 AI semiconductors to approved customers in China, with the U.S. Treasury taking a hefty 25% cut. A White House official said that the 25% fee would be collected as an import tax from Taiwan, where the chips are made, to the United States, where the chips will undergo a security review by U.S. officials before being exported to China. This reversal comes after years of bipartisan restrictions on advanced chip exports to China due to the U.S.'s desire to maintain its lead in AI. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang has long argued that such bans backfire, and he has personally lobbied Trump on the issue. The arrangement echoes earlier Trump administration proposals to trade export licenses for a share of sales revenue, marking a sharp turn toward leveraging rather than simply limiting tech trade with a strategic rival. In a sharp challenge to Western powers, Iran, China, and Russia are demanding the United Nations formally kill a key resolution underpinning the defunct Iran nuclear deal. The trio sent a letter to the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and Security Council President insisting that Resolution 2231, which endorsed the 2015 nuclear agreement, expired in October, rendering its recent invocation by Britain, France, and Germany to reimpose sanctions illegal. They argue the European powers bypassed the deal's own procedures, making the restored sanctions invalid and calling for the Security Council to end its formal consideration of Iran's nuclear file. The UN Security Council adopted the resolution in 2015 as an endorsement to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, otherwise known as the Iran nuclear deal. The resolution lifted all existing international sanctions against Iran in return for extensive restrictions on its nuclear program. The JCPOA, which was seen as a comprehensive move to resolve the dispute over Iran's nuclear program, suffered a setback when the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from it in 2018 and reimposed unilateral sanctions against Iran. This led Iran to take retaliatory measures, making the JCPOA dysfunctional. Despite this and its expiration in October, UN Resolution 2231 was invoked by its three European signatories, the UK, France, and Germany, in September, leading to the reimposition of international sanctions against Iran, despite objections from Russia and China. Iran condemns these sanctions as crimes against humanity, accusing the U.S. and its allies of weaponizing economic measures that target civilians and vital medicine access. Iran simultaneously criticized international courts for failing to hold powerful nations accountable, announcing its own draft law to prosecute such international crimes. Chinese scientists are pioneering a revolutionary stem cell therapy that is rapidly reversing severe Parkinson's symptoms in patients who have suffered for decades. Parkinson's disease is a progressive neurological disorder which mainly affects the body's movement capabilities and is caused by the death of nerve cells in a region of the brain that produces the hormone dopamine. Patients may eventually become stiff in their whole body and entirely incapable of taking care of themselves over time. This breakthrough treatment, led by the first affiliated hospital of the University of Science and Technology of China in Hefei, involves injecting stem cells directly into the brain, where they transform into new dopamine-producing neurons at an unprecedented rate, reportedly over 80% efficiency, to rebuild damaged neural circuits. In an ongoing clinical trial, one 37-year-old participant saw symptoms like tremors and rigidity vastly improve. While the therapy is still in early phase testing and there's still not yet a cure, these initial results demonstrate both safety and remarkable potential to restore lost movement by directly addressing the disease's root cause, the loss of dopamine-producing brain cells. A 15-year-old Chinese student has donated 2 crucial Japanese wartime relics to the Nanjing Massacre Memorial Hall. The items, a battlefield letter boasting of Nanjing's capture and a photo album from a Japanese Army field hospital, serve as potent evidence of Japan's aggression and are believed to directly connect to perpetrators of the 1937 atrocities. The battlefield letter was sent by a Japanese lieutenant named Yamakawa Yoshihito to Yamakawa Tokutaro on December 18, 1937. The front of the letter bears a postmark reading, "Commemorating the fall of Nanjing," and the letter reads, "Our destination, the capital Nanjing, was finally captured by us on the 13th. A grand military commander's entry ceremony was held on the 17th, and we were reviewed." According to research by experts at the Memorial Hall, 2 other Japanese soldiers from the same battalion as the Japanese Lieutenant Yamakawa have been confirmed to have participated in the Nanjing massacre. The photo album is from the Japanese military's Hanami unit, containing 44 photos that focus on the establishment of a field hospital in Tianjin. The images clearly capture the layout of the hospital's laboratory, supply room, and wards, as well as the medical activities of Japanese soldiers and the conditions of the hospital staff. The student, Yu Ningpeng, stated that safeguarding these objects is a practical way to protect the historical truth. His donation provides the memorial's experts with valuable primary materials for research. Between 1932 and 1945, the Japanese Imperial Army trafficked as many as 400,000 young women and girls as sex slaves to serve its soldiers in its occupied territories. Most of the women were Korean or Chinese, with others from places like Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, and Indonesia. Some were lured with false promises of high-paying jobs, while others were just abducted. This was the single largest case of government-sponsored human trafficking and sexual slavery in modern history, yet Japan still refuses to take proper accountability. To discuss this and their campaigns for justice for these women, we are so honored to have back on Julie Tang. Julie is a retired judge in California and the co-founder of the Comfort Women Justice Coalition. In 2020, she also co-founded Pivot to Peace, which advocates for peaceful relations between the U.S. and China. Julie, welcome back to the China Report.
Thank you, Amanda. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you back on, and we're really, this is a really important topic that I am really looking forward to. It's an important topic because of 2 things. One is that this year marks the 80th anniversary of China's victory over Japanese fascism. The second is Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's recent remarks over deploying troops in the Taiwan Strait in the event that a military crisis were to erupt. And she called this a survival threatening situation, which is similar language used by Imperial Japan to invade Northeast China during the September 18th incident. So the historical memory of Japanese war crimes and Japanese occupation is still very much alive in Chinese people's minds. So how do you see the work of the Comfort Women Justice Coalition in light of these events? And how do you see the significance of this particular struggle?
Thank you, Amanda. This is indeed a very, very important time to discuss the Japan's history during World War II with respect to Asia and also what's happening right now. Now, the Comfort Women Justice Coalition was formed in 2015. We are a peace organization dedicated to the history of and justice for the so-called comfort women. Comfort women is a euphemism for Japan's military sex slaves during World War II. We support the comfort women survivors' demand for apology and reparation and celebrate their unwavering resolve for justice. The comfort women system is created and set up by Japan's military during World War II. It is the only known government-created, managed, and operated form of government brothel in modern history. It allowed sexual violence, murder against women, and has an over 90% fatality rate among the women and girls in captivity, mostly by suicide, compared to about 40% or 42% of frontline soldiers' fatality rate. Our preamble calls for an end to sexual violence, racism, colonialism, militarization, and wars that incite them. We envision a world free from fear of sexual violence, where all women and girls can live a life with respect and dignity. Now, unfortunately, Japan's invasion of China and Asian countries during World War II, which fueled the atrocities of convict women, among other atrocities, is picking up momentum again. Behind the facade of a peaceful Japan where Americans flock to enjoy the advantages of a cheaper yen to the US dollar is a very ambitious and aggressive country that is aiming for remilitarization and rearmament. And its target is China, a country that it could not defeat during World War II. Before World War II was officially started in 1931, Japan had been invading Asia and forcefully annexed Taiwan and colonized it for 50 years. And it also defeated Korea and colonized it for 35 years. But China continued to resist Japan without surrender or defeat. At the end of the war, when Japan was defeated, it was required to adopt a peace amendment by the Allies to disarm and never engage in war except in limited self defense. The war hawks of Japan have never given up. They've been trying to undo the effects of the amendment. And Prime Minister Takachi recently said that Japan would go to war with China over Taiwan. And that is one of the clearest statements of embracing militarism, one of the most clearly stated provocation for war by any government leader thus far. Even the firebrand late Prime Minister Abe only made a statement similarly after his term of office has ended. So it's a statement that could not be taken as a government statement, but by a retired government official. But Takachi, on the first in the first 6 months as prime minister, couldn't wait to make such a statement openly, without mincing her words, that Japan will go to war with China over Taiwan, and has since still refused to retract such a statement at the request of China. The U.S. Pentagon has been preparing for war with China since Obama. We all know that. They adopted the pivot to China strategy, and Biden and Trump have followed through and called China an existential threat and have adopted extreme measures and created a Cold War to contain China. Japan plays an integral, if not crucial, role if a kinetic war does break out between the United States and China over Taiwan. Takachi understands Japan's role very well. She built a career on pro-military far-right policy stance and pushed for Japan's full rearmament. What she said was, in fact, a plan that had been carefully planned out by the Pentagon. And in the 2025 National Security Strategy of the U.S. released by the White House on December 4th, 2025, the United States took the position that our allies, namely Japan and its European allies and other Asian allies, but primarily Japan, must step up and spend, and more importantly, do much more for collective defense. Takachi is marching to the order, but she chose a very bad timing to do so. There's no war going on in Asia. Economically, China and Japan were trading at an all-time high. But sometimes the dog would bark louder than his master, and figures the master would always have her back. But she made a big mistake. Japan is in big trouble currently economically. Its debt is 230% of its GDP. And while trying to rescue Japan's failing economy, she passed a US $135 billion economic stimulus package. But its administration is continuing to be dogged by economics and diplomatic sanctions imposed by China. And her warmongering stance created a potential for war, which would hurt Japan's economy even more. And for her Asian neighbors, whose citizens have suffered tremendously during World War II, they would ask, what kind of terror is Japan going to rain on them if war breaks out again, given Japan's bad record in history and never having faced up to all the atrocities that it committed during World War II? There's little hope that it would do otherwise.
Right. And, comfort women, they were largely unknown or unrecognized before the 1990s. So, can you explain why it took so long for the public to even become aware of this system of sexual slavery and human trafficking under Imperial Japan?
Yeah, it took almost 50 years. In 1991, when Haksun Kim, a comfort woman survivor, broke the silence and told the world about her horrific experience as a Japanese military sex slave. Why did it take so long? Most of the comfort women survivors, when they returned to their own homes, they faced scorn and shunning for having served the enemy. Most could not get married. Their children that they bore while in captivity faced similar scorns. Now, under those atmosphere, they were afraid to speak up because they felt shameful for having been victimized.
Mm.
Asia as a whole, including China and Korea, was poor after World War II. The people having been invaded, robbed, murdered, and their properties destroyed. 35 million people died just in China alone, and all of Asia were demised by the travails of war. These countries are dealing with their own economic survival. But in 1991, Japan, which was at that time, which had never been punished really substantially for their war crimes and had never really faced up to the history either, was considered actually the most economically successful post war Asian country. They were blatantly lying about the comfort women system. The government was telling everybody that it didn't happen and thought they could get away with it. And they were also lying about other atrocities too. The rape of Nanjing, Unit 731's biological and chemical warfare upon civilians and Allied soldiers, the slave labor of Korean and Chinese young men, trafficking them to Japan and other parts of Asia to help build Japan's war infrastructure. All these atrocities were being denied by Japan. So people start getting really angry. And in spite of all the risk that they were gonna take, Haksun Kim stood up and told the world about what happened. And she confronted the Japanese government in official settings, in US Congress, in the United Nations. After she broke her silence, hundreds and thousands of comfort women survivors came out, all with similar stories. They came from China, Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, the Netherlands, Burma, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Australia, East Timor, Hong Kong, Macau, and the Ryukyu Islands. But also, we have to remember the women's movement for freedom from sexual violence did not come to its maturity until the last 20, 30 years. Much of it actually is owing to the comfort women survivors for speaking up. Because even for modern society like the US, it took a long time to fully appreciate and understand the complexities and concept of rape and sexual violence. For example, non-consensual sex between a married couple was not considered rape until 1993 in the United States. And rape during war was declared a crime against humanity by the Rome statute, stature, statute in 1998. The Me Too movement that started in 2006 did not pick up full momentum until 2017. So, for the comfort women coming from a very conservative, old fashioned, impoverished countries to actually come out 50 years later is actually not a surprising phenomenon. And we have learned more and more about sexual violence, what it does to people's psychology, and the time that it took to really understand what really happened is what happened to the comfort women. But we're proud of them. They spoke up, and a very famous woman, a Dutch woman, also showed up and spoke about her experience as a comfort woman. And that really enlarged the issue of women's plight beyond Asia into Europe and throughout the world.
Mm. Well, your organization, the Comfort Women Justice Coalition, you've done a lot of important work to make sure that these victims are memorialized and remembered. You recently had an exhibition in the San Francisco Public Library memorializing these victims. Back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, you also erected a statue in San Francisco memorializing Comfort Women. But leading this fight hasn't come with particular challenges, right? If I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but the mayor of Osaka actually ended its sister city relationship with San Francisco over this memorial that you had organized to put up. So can you talk a little bit about, the work that you've done, but also the pushback that you have received in doing this kind of work?
You're absolutely right, Amanda. We were trolled every time we do something on the comfort women issue, and the we were trolled by basically the Japan lobby. What is Japan lobby? It's both public and private. The public is the Japanese consulate office. Their consulate general, as well as as their staff, would contact the public officials in San Francisco and urge them not to support what we do. And then their private sector, which is beholden to the Japanese consulate office because of the wars that they get from the Japanese consulate office and their affiliation with Japan, would also follow in line. And they're also paid lobbyists as well. The paid lobbyists are people who take big money and they have very good connections with the local government. And so when they call, these local government officials pick up the phone and answer them. It took us 2 years, nonetheless, to build our memorial. We overcome all the difficulties. And in September of this, that was back in 2017, September, when we unveiled the Comfort Women Memorial in San Francisco, St. Mary's Square. And in September of this year, we were able to secure a contract with the San Francisco Public Library to exhibit the history of the San Francisco Comfort Women Memorial and the history of the Comfort Women Institution. The exhibit will be on display until February 2026, at which time we will move the exhibit to a neighborhood library, the Richmond Library, and hopefully we will have that for a couple more months. It is a small exhibit, but it presents the most poignant aspect of what sexual slavery is and how it impacts hundreds and thousands of Asian women in World War II. The Japan lobby raised its ugly head again here, as they did, in trying to stop our memorial from being built. As you said, the mayor of Osaka ended its sister city relationship with San Francisco over this memorial. The Japan lobby tried to have our library exhibit canceled. And at one point, we had to stop work for a month to enter into some discussions with the San Francisco Public Library, which had been and which had heard from the lobbyist. Well, thank goodness the San Francisco Public Library stood up to the Japan lobby and allowed the exhibit to be displayed. Yay, the people won. On September 26, 2025, we opened the exhibit to a standing room only ceremony. And I really want to invite everyone to go see the exhibit. It is at the San Francisco Main Library on the third floor. It was a hard fight to get this exhibit up. So don't miss it if you happen to be in San Francisco in the next couple of months and visit our Comfort Women Memorial also. And meanwhile, we continue to educate the public by holding panel discussions. We are like a flycatcher. Something happens, we will catch it. A couple of years ago, Harvard professor Ram Sayre wrote a hit piece based on a so-called game theory that comfort women were willing partners in the sexual violence, and that included even a 9-year-old who willingly signed a contract, knowing that the contract benefited the family, so she willingly undergo sexual violence and slavery within the comfort women system. Well, we had a resolution passed in the San Francisco Board of Supervisors condemning Ram Sayre for this utterly ridiculous and baseless kind of thesis. And several hundred game theorists and academics also signed petition accusing Ramsayer for misusing the theory to create a fake theory to demean the works of the comfort women movement advocates. So we are working, we continue to be vigilant. We're the watchdogs. We guard the comfort women memories very closely, and we are always trying to educate the public about what happened. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of people who don't know what happened. So our work is not done. And we hopefully that will have more support from the audience and the viewers who are here to support what we do. Visit the library, go to Come Memorial, and don't believe what the Japanese said anything about World War II. They've been lying and they're still lying.
No, absolutely. It's clear that the Japanese lobby is very powerful in the pushback that they've given you for this very important work that you do. And you have, worked with victims of Japanese war crimes, worked with former comfort women. Can you talk a little bit about what justice would look like for them? Like, what specifically are they demanding from Japan?
They demand an apology and reparations. And in our memorial, we have an inscription that says that quotes what the comfort women were saying. They said, "Our worst fear is that the world will forget about us. We're not going to let the world forget about them. We will keep the memories alive." But most importantly, they demand peace and no more war or colonization. Korea suffered 35 years under Japanese colonization, but its people never gave up in its resistance to colonization. They fought underground. They had a temporary government in Shanghai, China, and then they keyed to that government as their real government. Unfortunately, they also suffered tremendously under Japanese colonization. Now, China fought Japan for 14 years, and specifically, officially for 8 years, and for refusing to surrender. Japan committed serious atrocities upon women and girls under the comfort women system, and they committed murders and killed 300,000 Chinese civilians in 3 months' time during the rape of Nanjing. And all these atrocities must not be forgotten. What we're trying to do is, as the victims asked us to do, is to keep education. But now that the Prime Minister, Takachi, is threatening war again, we need to be vigilant because this is not rhetoric, but an open threat to war and a provocation for war. Japan's fiscal year 2025 defense spending is near $70 billion, focusing heavily on US-made long-range missiles for use in a war with China. And the US is now discussing a plan to arm Japan with nuclear weapons. And for a country that has not faced its history of invasion just 80 years ago, it is the scariest thought that they would be armed with weapons of mass destruction in clear preparation for another war in China. So to summarize, justice for the women would be peace and no more war and contain Japan.
Well, as you've mentioned several times, there has been no accountability on the part of Japan for everything that they've done during World War II. Prime Minister Takaichi herself is a regular visitor to the Yasukuni Shrine, this World War II shrine in Tokyo, which honors literally convicted war criminals. And as Japan moves toward remilitarization that's fueled by a far-right nationalist movement, how dangerous do you see a more military-oriented Japan, especially given that it's never accepted full responsibilities for not only the system of human trafficking and sexual slavery, but any of its war crimes during World War II?
Oh, I think it's extremely dangerous. I think Japan is actually the faction, the war hawks, and Takachi is among them, the extremely militarized, pro-militarization, pro-imperialism, pro-colonialism type of right-wing policy stakeholders. And she and this group of elites, and I call them elites because these are also very rich people. They own a lot of the Japanese heavy industries, and they continue their hierarchy throughout the 80 years since the end of war, and they're the ones who still bear this grudge of having surrendered. To them, that losing that face is just the worst thing in the world. Now, they actually never really suffered any punishment after the war. The rest of Asia was still embedded in civil wars, domestic strife, economic struggles. Japan, uh, with the help of with America, basically built and its own industry and its people's own industriousness, was able to build up the economy very quickly, and enjoyed a very peaceful time of 80 years. And the citizens actually treasure it, and they did not want Japan to rearm. But that concept is changing because Japan's leadership have been able to convince its own people. First of all, they were never educated about what happened during World War II under Abe, former Prime Minister Abe. The textbooks had all been changed. Their elementary school textbooks never discussed what really happened during World War II. In particular, the atrocities were reshaped into some form of a supportive action from Japan's side and protecting the Asia from Western intervention, and therefore Japan had to go, and support their neighbors such as China and Korea and colonize them, and form this what they call the Big Japan, Big Japan continent, and these young people never knew about the history, so they are now actually as tending towards supporting the rearmament of Japan as well. And they, along with other Western countries, fear China's growth instead of embracing it and continue to enjoy the economic benefits that they derived from trading with China. They see China as a threat. So, with Japan having that kind of mindset and its leadership and the elites of Japan, the same people that took power right after World War II and created their democratic, I think that Democratic Party, is still in power with a short, maybe 8 months time when another party took over, but they continue to persist as the power and authority authoritarian leader of Japan for these last 80 years. And so, with this kind of mindset, having history, denying history the way they have, it's going to be horrific if there's war again. Japan will unleash whatever it has, unleash it, and even at their own fatal mistake, as a fatal mistake, they would still do it. They would pursue it. So don't underestimate Japan's warmongering attitudes and sentiments. I think that the worst thing is to look at what Japan is now and accept it. Oh, it's sand-like, and it's peaceful. Look at the gardens and how beautiful, how kind the people are. And that's all true too. But underneath that is a strong power, very strong power, aching for war again, aching to win again, and win the battle and the war that they lost 80 years ago.
No, that's a very important reminder because, of the old adage, those who don't learn from history are destined to repeat it, right? And so that makes this fight for justice for comfort women and their recognition even more important, especially given this road that Japan is taking toward remilitarization. But, I think that's all the time that we have. If you could give us, if you could remind us again about this exhibition at the San Francisco Public Library, when is it running till? And if people are in San Francisco, where can they visit the memorial?
Yes, the memorial is situated in a park called St. Mary's Square. It is on California and Grand Avenue it's a little bit hard to find it. Some people said they went there and they couldn't find it because is there's an old St. Mary's Square and then there's a new St. Mary's Square. So when you go inside St. Mary's Square, you go all the way to the end. You have to take a couple of minutes to look for it. You'll find it. It's behind a playground. But once you find it, oh, you're going to find a very, very beautiful and wonderful experience right before you. We have the three girls, a Chinese, a Korean, and a Filipino girl holding hands, joining hands. This is their the prime of their life. They're in the they're about 15, 16 years old, and they're joining hands together. They are looking at the world defiantly. And then you also have Haksun Kim, whom I mentioned earlier, was the first woman, Korean woman who spoke up about her experience as a comfort woman. And she's also there looking at the three girls, thinking about her youth that was stolen and robbed from her. Against the backdrop of this statue are huge, tall buildings. You have in San Francisco, these carpet buildings, banks, or whatever, and they look formidable. And these girls look so vulnerable. It's a real contrast. And the optics is just wonderful. The feeling is strong. Read the inscription. What we have, we fought very hard to get that inscription. The Japan lobby was pushing back and objecting to every word that we wrote, wanting to rewrite it for us. But we fought them at the commission hearing, and we agreed with a few items where the commission also has some problems. And for example, we put down 200,000 girls were induced, coerced, and kidnapped. They disagree with the number, so we said, okay, we'll use hundreds of thousands, which makes it even more infinitely larger. So we make some concessions. But ultimately, after like maybe a 2-3 hour hearing, we got our inscription and it was approved. So read it and learn from it. And it's in 4 languages. It's in Chinese, it's in Japanese, it's in Tagalog, and it's also in Japanese. As a Japanese, Korean, Chinese, and Tagalog. The 4 languages are the 4 largest group of where the comfort women consist of. Actually, another group that we were thinking about putting up to is the Dutch women. The Dutch women who are living in the Dutch Indies. They were also there were about 600-700 of them. But counting the numbers, we still feel that the other 3 groups, the Filipinos and the Koreans and Chinese, formed the larger group. So we put up those 3 girls instead. If we could put up a 4th, we would put up a Dutch girl there. And so please visit our memorial. They're waiting for you to visit. By the way, the several years, I think ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, the Chronicle did a poll asking the people which statue they hate the most, okay, in San Francisco. But instead of hating, they found out that there are statues that San Franciscans also love the most. We came in number 2. We came in number 2 of San Franciscans' most favorite statue in San Francisco. And it wasn't too many years since we built it. So it's one of San Francisco's favorite memorial. We're very proud. We have a legacy from the Comfort Women Justice Coalition, and we paid enough money for the San Francisco to upkeep it for the next 20 years. And then maybe in 20 years, we have to renegotiate with the city for further upkeep. But right now, because of the graffiti issue, which happened a lot, in the first 6 months, it was that they paint white paint on it. They colored Haksun Kim's eyes green, and then there was someone filmed kicking the memorial, spitting on it. So it's quiet down a little bit now because it haven't got that much publicity. But we want to protect our memorial, and the Japanese right wingers still want to take it down. They're still talking about taking it down. One Japanese legislator said that my biggest mission is to take down all the memorials, comfort women memorials in the United States. With this kind of denial, okay, coming from the top, how can Japan lead Asia? And how can Japan be a world leader? And evidently, it is not. And we just got to be very vigilant with this kind of attitude, vigilant about what Japan is doing with the weapons now they're buying from the United States, and vigilant about its provocation for war. So, please visit the memorial. Please visit the library exhibition. Again, the library was hard fought. We had to fight the Japan lobby to keep it in place, and we have bigger ideas for it still, and other big ideas about promoting the issue of comfort women. But we need your support. So thank you so much, Amanda, for this program.
No, thank you for coming on. Julie Tang of the Comfort Women Justice Coalition, doing very important work. If you're in San Francisco, visit the memorial, visit their exhibition at the San Francisco Public Library. And we look forward to seeing other work that you do in the future honoring these women. It's very important.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you for our breakthrough. Thank you.
Thanks. Completed in 2024, the Tianshan Shongli Tunnel in Xinjiang is the world's longest expressway tunnel at just over 22 kilometers or 14 miles. It runs through the Tianshan Mountains, cutting what was a 3-hour trip to just 20 minutes and improving connectivity between northern and southern Xinjiang. That's our show. Before we go, we have one last announcement. A lot of you over the past year have been asking for a podcast version of this show. We heard you. We're now uploading the China Report as podcasts on the Breakthrough News Patreon. So make sure to subscribe and make sure to become a patron, because that's how you'll get access to the audio files. But that's our show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.